Okay, so are you ready to jump into a topic that could literally rewrite history?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, so we're going deep into the work of Graham Hancock.
Yeah.
This guy has been shaking up archaeology for decades now with this idea of a lost Ice Age civilization.
He really does challenge conventional thinking, and I think that's what makes him so interesting.
Yeah, he's not just throwing out wild theories, though.
Yeah.
He's pulling from archaeology, geology, mythology even.
He really tries to build a case.
You sent us this podcast episode where he's talking to Lex Fridman.
Oh, yeah.
And it is a total rabbit hole. It's fascinating. He even did a Netflix series called Ancient Apocalypse exploring this stuff. But here's the question for our listeners. Why should you care about a lost civilization?
Yeah, that's the thing. It makes you question everything you thought you knew about human progress and how we got to where we are today.
Yeah.
Hancock points out this puzzle. We've had brains capable of complex thought for at least 300,000 years. But civilization as we know it just kind of pops up relatively recently.
Yeah.
So what are we doing for all that time? Could we be missing a huge chunk of the story?
Maybe. All right, so to understand his theory, we got to talk about the Younger Dryas event.
Okay.
This was a brutal climate shift that hit the Earth around 12,800 years ago.
Right.
We're talking mass extinctions, plummeting temperatures.
Yeah.
And
global floods.
yeah, massive flood. It's like a real-life disaster movie.
And the interesting thing is, scientists have found a distinct layer in the Earth dating back to this exact time.
Okay.
And it's packed with what they call impact proxies. It's like a fingerprint of a major cosmic impact.
Wait a second. Impact proxies, what does that even mean?
Okay, so these are materials like nanodiamonds and melted quartz, stuff that's typically created by the intense heat and pressure of an impact.
Okay.
Like a giant meteor slamming into Earth.
Gotcha. So we're talking a potential extinction level event here.
Yeah, it's not good.
So we've got this potential impact mass extinctions, the whole shebang. But how does this connect back to a lost civilization?
Well, Hancock's argument is that this cataclysm, this impact,
Right.
could have wiped out a civilization that was actually far more advanced than we give them credit for.
Oh.
Imagine entire cities, knowledge systems, technologies gone in a flash,
Wow.
leaving behind only scattered survivors and just little pieces of memory.
So hitting the reset button on human progress?
Yeah, basically.
And that brings us to Göbekli Tepe.
Okay.
This site in Turkey that has archaeologists scratching their heads.
Yeah, this place is wild. It's got these massive, intricately carved stone pillars, all arranged in circles. And get this, it dates back at least 11,600 years.
Okay, so older than agriculture.
Older than agriculture, older than pottery.
Wow.
Older than anything we thought could be that complex.
So Göbekli Tepe kind of throws a wrench in the whole timeline of civilization.
It really does.
Yeah.
It suggests that something was going on much earlier than we thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you mentioned astronomy earlier.
Right.
What's the connection there?
Well, this is where things get even more interesting. So, Göbekli Tepe, along with other ancient structures, it's like the Great Sphinx and the Pyramids of Giza,
Yeah.
they seem to align with specific star positions,
Okay.
but not from their supposed construction dates. The alignment only makes sense if you look back to the time of the Younger Dryas.
You're telling me these structures might be giant stone calendars pointing back to this lost civilization?
That's what Hancock is suggesting.
Coincidence? My mind is officially blown.
It's wild stuff.
It's wild. And he doesn't stop there. He even brings in these ancient maps like the Piri Race map,
Yeah,
which seems to show the world as it looked during the Ice Age.
right, including Antarctica.
Including Antarctica, way before we supposedly had the technology or the knowledge to chart those regions.
It's pretty mind-boggling.
How does he explain that?
Well, he suggests that there had to be a sophisticated seafaring civilization that existed long before what we consider the dawn of navigation. And this knowledge, he argues, didn't just disappear. It was preserved and passed down by those who survived this Younger Dryas cataclysm.
Okay, so we've got massive structures, astronomical alignments,
Yeah.
ancient maps that shouldn't exist. It's like we're living in the Matrix here.
It really makes you question everything you thought you knew about the past.
Totally. And for Hancock, all these clues point back to a central idea.
Right.
This idea that ancient shamanic practices might actually hold the key to this lost knowledge.
Shamanism is a big part of his theory.
Okay, so let's talk about shamanism. He claims it was more than just spiritual. It was the root of human innovation.
Right.
But I'm a bit fuzzy on the details. What does he actually mean by that?
He sees shamanism as the foundation of human knowledge systems. He argues that early shamans, through their deep exploration of consciousness, often using psychedelics like ayahuasca,
Oh.
gained insights that shaped early civilizations.
Wait, so he's saying these ancient shamans were like tripping out and having visions that led to advancements in technology and knowledge?
It's a controversial idea for sure.
It's pretty out there.
It is, but, many cultures around the world have used psychedelics for spiritual and ritualistic purposes for centuries.
Right.
And mainstream science is only just starting to catch up with research on their potential benefits and effects on consciousness.
So while the idea of shamanism as this driver of innovation is intriguing, it also raises some eyebrows.
It definitely does.
But let's be honest, Hancock isn't exactly known for playing it safe.
No, he's not.
He pushes boundaries, and that's what makes his work so captivating.
It's true. He's not afraid to challenge the status quo, and that often ruffles some feathers.
Yeah, he definitely gets some pushback from mainstream archaeologists.
Oh, absolutely.
They accuse him of promoting pseudoscience even.
Right? They say he's not a real scientist.
Yeah, but I think that's part of what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating.
I agree.
It's about grappling with those big, uncomfortable questions, the ones that make us rethink everything we thought we knew.
It's about being open to alternative perspectives, even if they seem radical or outlandish at first glance.
So before we jump into part 2, let's do a quick recap. Hancock's theory hinges on this idea of a lost civilization,
Right.
wiped out by this Younger Dryas Impact event.
Yeah.
And he says we can find remnants of this civilization scattered across the globe. Enigmatic structures, advanced maps, persistent myths.
It's all connected.
And at the heart of it all is this concept of shamanism as a catalyst for knowledge and innovation.
It's a wild ride for sure.
It's a wild ride, but I'm honestly hooked.
Me too.
What about you? Are you ready to see where this rabbit hole leads?
Absolutely. Let's keep digging.
Huh?
Okay, so we've talked about Hancock's big picture ideas.
Yeah.
But what's the actual evidence he points to?
Yeah, let's see the receipts. I'm ready for some specific examples.
Okay.
I know he talks about Gunung Padang in Indonesia.
Oh, yeah, Gunung Padang.
What's the story with that site?
Like this giant layer cake of history.
Okay.
On the surface, you've got these stepped terraces, megalithic structures, kind of like an Indonesian Stonehenge.
Right.
But here's the thing. Researchers used ground-penetrating radar,
Okay.
and they found even older structures buried underneath,
Oh, wow.
potentially dating back as far as 20,000 years.
20,000 years. That's like smack dab in the middle of the last ice age.
It is.
Weren't humans supposed to be like nomadic hunter-gatherers back then?
That's what we're taught.
Yeah, how could they have built something so complex?
That's the million-dollar question. Gunung Padang really throws a wrench into the conventional timeline of civilization.
Yeah.
It suggests that sophisticated construction techniques existed far earlier than mainstream archaeology would have us believe.
So Gunung Padang's a pretty big anomaly then.
It is a big one.
What other sites does Hancock use to support his theory?
Well, another fascinating example is Nan Madol in Micronesia,
Okay.
sometimes called the Venice of the Pacific.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so picture this. A series of artificial islands connected by canals,
Okay.
all built from these massive basalt blocks
Wow.
way out in the middle of the ocean.
Okay, that sounds pretty impressive.
It is.
But why is Nan Madol so significant in Hancock's view?
Well, the sheer scale and complexity of the construction is mind-boggling. These basalt blocks weigh tons.
Yeah.
And we're still not sure how they were quarried, transported, and placed with such precision.
Yeah.
Especially considering the limited technology we assume they had back then.
Right. It's like another how did they build that situation.
Exactly.
And Hancock uses this as evidence for a lost civilization with more advanced capabilities.
Yeah, he suggests that Nan Madol's layout with its canals and artificial islands might even be a symbolic representation of a lost city that was submerged beneath the waves at the end of the last ice age.
It's like a ghostly echo of a civilization we've completely forgotten.
Exactly.
So we've got these intriguing land-based sites.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something about underwater sites, too. What's the deal with those?
Well, off the coast of India,
Okay.
there are sites like Dwarka and Mahabalipuram. These are now partially submerged. But the structures and artifacts found there
Yeah.
point to what were once thriving urban centers.
Okay.
Hancock's argument is that these cities were victims of rising sea levels at the end of the Ice Age,
Right.
swallowed by the ocean as the ice sheets melted.
And he connects these submerged cities back to those ancient myths,
He does.
like the story of Dwarka,
Yeah.
the city built by the god Krishna that was said to have been swallowed by the sea.
Exactly. He sees these myths not just as stories, but as echoes of real events.
Okay.
Cultural memories passed down through generations, hinting at a time when coastlines were different and civilizations might have flourished in places that are now underwater.
It's fascinating to think about.
It is.
So we've got a lot of tantalizing clues here,
Yeah.
but it all hinges on this idea of a cataclysmic event that wiped out this supposed advanced civilization. We've talked about the impact proxies found in that Younger Dryas boundary layer, but what does the broader scientific community say about this impact hypothesis?
Yeah.
Is there enough evidence to convince them?
Well, that's where things get a bit more complicated. There's been a lot of debate back and forth within the scientific community about this impact hypothesis.
Okay.
Some researchers find the evidence pretty compelling, while others remain skeptical.
Okay, so what are like the strongest arguments on each side?
Okay, so on the pro-impact side, they point to a few key things. First, you've got those impact proxies we talked about. The nanodiamonds, the melted quartz and platinum spikes found in the Younger Dryas boundary layer.
Yeah.
These are all strong indicators of a major impact event.
Those materials don't just form out of thin air. It takes some serious energy to create them.
Right, exactly. Then there's the evidence of widespread wildfires across the globe coinciding with the onset of the Younger Dryas. And proponents argue that these fires could have been sparked by the intense heat of an impact, or the airburst that Hancock talks about, causing this devastating chain reaction that wiped out ecosystems and contributed to mass extinctions.
That makes sense. A major impact event could definitely trigger that kind of widespread destruction.
Yeah.
But what about the other side? What are the arguments against the impact hypothesis?
Well, the skeptics argue that the evidence of impact proxies isn't quite as clear-cut as it might seem.
Okay.
They say these materials could have been produced by other processes,
Like what?
like volcanic eruptions or even large-scale wildfires themselves.
So they're saying there might be other explanations for those materials that don't involve a cosmic impact.
Right, and their biggest trump card is that no one has found an impact crater
Okay.
of the right size and age to account for the Younger Dryas event.
That's a good point. If a meteor big enough to cause that kind of global upheaval slammed into Earth, you'd think we'd have found the crater by now.
You would think. But the impact proponents, they counter by saying that the impactor might have been a comet, not a meteor.
A comet instead of a meteor.
Oh.
How's that different?
Well, comets are mostly ice and dust,
Okay.
so they tend to break up in the atmosphere,
Okay.
creating airbursts and a scattered field of debris rather than a single impact crater.
So it's like a shotgun blast versus a single bullet.
Exactly.
Harder to trace back to a specific point of impact.
Right. And the impact proponents also suggest that the impact might have occurred over the ice sheets,
Over the ice sheets.
which would have masked the evidence of a crater.
Oh, I see.
Imagine a comet slamming into a giant ice sheet.
Okay.
It would create a massive meltwater pulse,
Yeah.
but the crater itself might be hidden beneath the ice.
Okay. I'm starting to see why this debate is so contentious.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It's like a scientific mystery with lots of compelling clues, but no definitive answers.
Right.
So where does that leave us?
I think it means the jury's still out on the Younger Dryas Impact Hypothesis. Okay, while the evidence presented by Hancock and other researchers is intriguing, it hasn't fully convinced the scientific community. But hey, that's how science works.
Right.
New discoveries are constantly challenging old assumptions, and the search for truth is never truly over.
It's a reminder that we need to stay open to new possibilities while also demanding rigorous evidence.
Absolutely.
But for now, let's move on to another fascinating aspect of Hancock's work.
Okay.
His exploration of mythology. He claims that these ancient stories aren't just make-believe,
Right.
that they might actually hold clues to our past. How does he make that connection?
Well, he argues that myths, often dismissed as mere storytelling,
Yeah.
might actually contain encoded knowledge and memories of real events from the distant past,
Okay.
passed down through generations. He sees them as echoes of a time before written history,
Right.
a time when oral tradition was the primary way of transmitting knowledge.
Well, it's like a giant game of telephone, but with stories instead of whispers. But how can we tell what's real and what's embellishment in these myths?
That's where the detective work comes in.
Yeah.
Hancock believes that by carefully analyzing these myths, comparing them across cultures,
Yeah.
and looking for patterns and recurring motifs, we might be able to tease out the historical truths hidden within them.
And one of the most common motifs he points to is the flood myth, right?
Yes. The story of a great deluge that wipes out the world appears in cultures all over the globe.
It's everywhere.
It is. You've got Noah's Ark in the Bible, the Epic of Gilgamesh from ancient Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
Similar stories from the Americas, Asia, Africa, Australia.
Wow.
It's a global phenomenon.
That really is.
And Hancock argues that the sheer prevalence of these flood myths, along with the striking similarities in their details, suggests a shared memory of a real cataclysmic event.
So he's not saying these myths are like literal historical accounts, but rather that they point to a real event, a global flood that traumatized humanity and became embedded in our collective storytelling.
Exactly. He sees these flood myths as echoes of the trauma of the Younger Dryas event, the rapid sea level rise and the devastation it caused. Imagine witnessing your world being swallowed by the ocean.
That would be terrifying.
It would. And that's an experience that would be passed down through generations, woven into the fabric of your culture's stories.
It makes you wonder what other truths might be hidden within these ancient myths, right?
Right. What other pieces of the puzzle are we missing?
Yeah. But flood myths aren't the only type that Hancock uses to support his theory, right?
Right. He also talks about myths of lost civilizations in golden ages.
Oh, yeah, like Atlantis.
Exactly. He points to stories like the Greek myth of Atlantis, a technologically advanced island nation that was said to have been destroyed by a cataclysmic event.
Right.
He sees parallels between the Atlantis myth and his own theory of a lost Ice Age civilization, suggesting that the story might be a distorted memory of a real civilization that was wiped out by the Younger Dryas cataclysm.
So he's not just cherry-picking flood myths.
No.
He's looking for broader patterns.
Oh, he is.
Across different cultures and different types of myths.
Right.
Trying to find those echoes of a lost past.
Exactly. He also points to myths from ancient Egypt that describe a time called Zep Tepi.
Zep Tepi.
Which means the first time.
Okay.
This era was said to be a golden age when gods walked the earth and civilization flourished.
Okay.
He believes that these myths might preserve memories of a time when humans possessed advanced knowledge and technology, knowledge that was lost or forgotten after a cataclysmic event.
It's like he's piecing together a giant puzzle using mythology as one of the key pieces.
It's a fascinating approach.
It is, but isn't that a pretty unorthodox approach?
It is.
For someone who claims to be using scientific methods.
Yeah, it's definitely controversial.
How do scientists react to his use of mythology?
Well, as you might imagine, his reliance on mythology is one of the most criticized aspects of his work. Many scientists and historians argue that myths are just that, myths.
Right.
Stories with symbolic or allegorical meaning, not literal accounts of historical events.
Yeah.
They point out that myths are often fluid and can change over time, making it difficult to separate fact from fiction.
So they see it as a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Once you start using mythology as evidence, you risk opening the door to all sorts of unsubstantiated claims.
That's their concern.
But what does Hancock say to those criticisms?
Well, he acknowledges the challenges of interpreting mythology, but argues that dismissing it entirely would be a mistake. He points out that in cultures without written language, oral storytelling was the primary way of transmitting knowledge and preserving history.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He believes that by carefully analyzing the recurring themes and motifs in myths from different cultures, we can identify kernels of truth that point to real events or cultural memories.
So he sees mythology as a valuable tool.
He does.
As long as it's used judiciously and in conjunction with other forms of evidence.
Right. It's like using a different lens to view the past. One that can reveal insights that might be missed by traditional scientific methods.
I like that. It definitely pushes the boundaries of what we consider evidence.
It does.
And forces us to grapple with the limits of our knowledge.
For sure.
But this is just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
We've talked about the impact hypothesis,
Yeah.
the archaeological evidence, and the role of mythology.
Yes.
But there's one more element of Hancock's work that we haven't explored in depth.
Okay.
The shamanic worldview.
Right.
Why is that so central to his theory?
Well, Hancock believes that the shamanic worldview holds the key to understanding not only the knowledge of this lost civilization, but also the potential of human consciousness itself.
That's a big claim.
It is. He sees it as a bridge between the scientific and the spiritual. A way of integrating our understanding of the physical world with the deeper mysteries of consciousness and existence.
I'm intrigued, but I need a bit of a refresher on shamanism.
Okay.
What are like the core principles of this worldview? How does Hancock connect them to his overall theory?
Shamanism is a complex and multifaceted tradition
Yeah,
found in cultures all over the world, so it's hard to pin down a single definition.
I can imagine.
But at its core, it's a belief system that recognizes the interconnectedness of all things,
Okay.
the existence of spirits and other realms of reality, and the ability of humans to access these realms through altered states of consciousness.
Okay, that sounds pretty out there compared to like the scientific materialism that dominates Western thought.
It definitely challenges the dominant paradigm.
Yeah.
But remember, these practices have been around for tens of thousands of years.
Right.
And they're still practiced by millions of people around the world.
Yeah.
Hancock argues that dismissing shamanism as mere superstition would be a mistake,
Okay.
that it might actually hold profound insights into the nature of reality and the potential of human consciousness.
So what does this shamanic worldview have to do with a lost Ice Age civilization?
Well, he believes that the advanced knowledge and technology possessed by this lost civilization were rooted in a deep understanding of consciousness and the natural world,
Okay.
an understanding that was cultivated through shamanic practices. He sees shamans as the original scientists,
The original science.
explorers of consciousness who use techniques like drumming, chanting, dancing, and the ingestion of psychoactive plants
Wow.
to access altered states of consciousness and gain insights that were unavailable to ordinary waking awareness.
So he's saying that these ancient shamans weren't just spiritual leaders,
No.
but also scientists, inventors, and keepers of knowledge.
Exactly.
That's a pretty radical reinterpretation of their role in ancient society.
It is, and it's definitely a controversial claim.
Yeah.
But Hancock believes that the evidence supports this view,
Okay.
pointing to the sophisticated astronomical knowledge encoded in ancient structures, the use of psychoactive plants in ritual contexts,
Right.
and the persistent myths and legends that speak of a time when humans had a deeper connection to the natural world and the cosmos.
Okay, I'm starting to see how the shamanic worldview fits into Hancock's larger narrative.
Yeah.
It's like the missing link that connects the dots between a lost civilization, advanced knowledge, and the potential of human consciousness.
Right.
But we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Where do we go from here?
Well, in part 3, we'll explore the implications of Hancock's work for our understanding of human history,
Okay.
the nature of consciousness, and the future of our species. Stay tuned.
Okay, so we've been on quite a journey with Graham Hancock.
We have.
Lost civilizations, ancient mysteries,
Right.
even dipped our toes into the shamanic worldview.
Right.
But now I want to talk about the bigger picture.
Okay.
What does all this mean for us here and now?
Yeah. So what's question?
Exactly. Like, if we entertain the possibility that Hancock is onto something, how does it actually impact our understanding of the world?
Right. It makes you think about things differently.
Yeah, like if we accept that civilization might be far older than we think,
Yeah.
does that change how we view human progress?
It really does. I
Yeah.
think it kind of undermines this idea that we're at the pinnacle of human achievement.
Right.
You know?
Are we really as advanced as we like to believe?
Exactly.
Or are we just rediscovering things that our ancestors knew millennia ago?
It's a humbling thought.
It is. Hancock's work suggests that this idea of like linear progress,
Yeah.
this steady march from primitive to advanced,
Right.
might be an oversimplification.
Yeah. What if it's more cyclical?
Cyclical?
With periods of great advancement,
Okay.
followed by these catastrophic events that wipe the slate clean?
And we have to start over.
Exactly.
Right.
Like a cosmic game of snakes and ladders.
Right. We climb up the ladder of progress.
Yeah.
Only to get sent back down the snake of disaster.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, what if we're not as unique as we think we are?
Right. What if we're just one civilization among many that have risen and fallen throughout Earth's history?
That's a possibility.
All right, let's bring it back down to Earth for a second, though.
Oh.
Let's say, for argument's sake, that Hancock is right.
Mm-hmm.
What are the practical implications?
That's a good question.
Like, how could this lost knowledge,
Yeah.
this shamanic worldview, actually benefit us today?
Well, Hancock argues that the shamanic worldview, with its emphasis on interconnectedness, respect for nature,
Oh, okay.
and exploration of consciousness,
Yeah.
holds valuable lessons for us today.
Okay, I can see that we're facing some pretty major challenges right now.
Yeah, we are.
Climate change, social divisions, the sense of meaninglessness.
It's a lot.
Maybe looking back to ancient wisdom could help us find new solutions.
That's what he's suggesting, that this ancient wisdom might hold the keys to solving some of our modern problems.
Like how?
Well, the shamanic worldview offers a different perspective,
Okay.
one that sees humanity not as separate from or superior to nature,
Mm,
but as an integral part of a larger web of life.
right.
This perspective could be vital in tackling environmental issues,
Okay.
like climate change and resource depletion.
Shifting from a mindset of dominance
Yeah,
to one of harmony and balance.
exactly.
But what about the exploration of consciousness?
Right.
How could that be relevant to the problems we face today?
Well, Hancock suggests that exploring altered states of consciousness
Okay.
through meditation, breath work, even psychedelics, could help us tap into a deeper level of understanding and creativity,
Okay.
allowing us to approach problems from a fresh perspective.
So it's like hacking into our own operating system.
Yeah, kind of.
Expanding the capacity of our minds
Exactly.
to think outside the box and find new pathways forward.
That's the idea.
I can definitely see the potential there, especially when it comes to things like scientific breakthroughs or even conflict resolution.
Right. It could help us break free from old patterns of thinking
Yeah.
and find new ways of relating to each other and the world around us.
And beyond the practical applications, there's also the potential for personal transformation and healing.
Absolutely. The shamanic worldview emphasizes the importance of connecting with our inner selves,
Okay.
our intuition,
Yeah.
and our place in the larger web of life.
It's like finding our true north,
Yeah,
that inner compass that can guide us through the chaos and uncertainty of the modern world.
I like that analogy.
But let's be real. Some of these ideas
Yeah.
sound pretty radical,
They do.
especially to those who are firmly grounded in a scientific materialist worldview.
There's no doubt that Hancock's theories challenge conventional thinking,
Yeah,
but that's precisely why they're so important to engage with,
I agree.
whether we ultimately agree with him or not.
Right.
His work forces us to ask ourselves some fundamental questions
Yeah.
about the nature of reality,
Yeah.
the potential of human consciousness,
Right.
and the trajectory of our civilization.
It's like shaking up the snow globe of our assumptions and seeing where the pieces land.
Exactly. It can be unsettling, but it can also be incredibly liberating.
It can. So where does this leave us?
Well, I think the key takeaway is this.
Okay.
Even if we can't definitively prove or disprove Hancock's theories,
Right.
his work serves as a powerful reminder that our understanding of history is always evolving.
It's a work in progress.
It is. What we consider truth today might be rewritten tomorrow.
The more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know.
It's humbling, but it's also exciting.
It is. There's always more to discover, more to explore, more to understand.
Exactly. And perhaps in the process of exploring these mysteries,
Yeah.
we might just rediscover something essential about ourselves.
Okay.
Something that's been lost or forgotten, but is waiting to be reawakened.
I like that. It's a call to adventure.
It is.
A quest for knowledge that takes us not only across the globe and back in time,
Mm,
but also deep within ourselves.
that's beautifully said.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into the work of Graham Hancock.
But the conversation doesn't end here.
We encourage you to continue exploring these ideas.
Yeah.
Do your own research, and maybe even try a little shamanic exploration of your own.
Who knows what you might discover?
Until next time, keep diving deep.
And keep questioning everything.